We're talking about Rhythm Tengoku today. This video is doomed to do poorly since this game is far from popular, but I felt like making a video about it, so here we are. Rhythm Tengoku was released only in Japan on August 3rd, 2006 for the Game Boy Advance. It was the first installment in the Rhythm Heaven series, which has 4 games in it so far. It's also notable that it was the final game that Nintendo published for the GBA, coming out over a year and a half after the DS came out. There's an arcade version too, also only in Japan, but there's effectively no way I'll ever be able to play it, and it's not too different from the main version, so I'll pretend it doesn't exist. Also add that even though this game is Japanese only, some of the footage I'm using is going to be from the English fan translation, Rhythm Heaven Silver. That's also what I own and play it on, since the cards for it are less expensive than the imports. Rhythm Tengoku is effectively a compilation of 48 rhythm games with a variety of extra other bonuses thrown in. The goal is to beat all of these minigames, and later you try for higher ratings. This makes it a perfect casual game, as I could leave the game for a year and pick it up again with no difficulty, because most of the games teach you how to play them, and you can always return to previous games. After every set of 5 minigames, there's one remix, which takes old games and combines them to an all-new song. These games are usually the previous 5, but sometimes other older ones pop up. It's kind of random. Everything's fair game for these, and it makes them really exciting and some of the highlights of the game. The constant switching between the minigames keeps the player on their toes, and it's always fun to see what creative ways they can combine the previous minigames. There are 48 of them, but that's broken into 3 parts. There are 8 remixes, 25 original games, and 15 sequels. The sequels are usually faster and almost always more difficult than the original, and even though they take the same concept of the originals with effectively no alteration, they still warrant their own place in this game. They're great fun. The game has a lot of replayability with the incentive of its rating system. Every time you play a game, you get a score based on your accuracy. The lowest is try again, which effectively means you failed. Then there's OK, which lets you pass the minigame with no further reward. If you do nearly perfectly, you'll get a superb. This passes the game and also gives you a medal. It's used to unlock bonus stuff later. Once you get a superb on a game, there's a chance that the game will randomly prompt you to go for a perfect, which gives you 3 tries to beat the game without missing a single input. If you don't succeed in any of these 3 tries, you just gotta wait until it randomly decides to give you an opportunity again. But if you do get a perfect, you'll be rewarded hardly with either a song, a drum, or something to read that offers you a bit more insight into the world that Rhythm Tengoku manages to craft through these disjointed minigames. I was planning on going through every minigame at first, but then I realized that would take an outrageous amount of time, so I think I'll just discuss a couple of them. Maybe someday I'll make a video reviewing every one of them, but that would drag out this video way too much. Karate Man is the first minigame you'll encounter, and although it's fairly simplistic, a version of it has appeared in every game in the series, making this guy a bit of an unofficial series mascot. This is also the only song here to feature English vocals, and although they're not that great, they definitely have their charm. Rhythm Tweezers is the second minigame, and it's one of my favorites. First off, I love how weird this game's concept and visuals are, especially how it opens with this onion just staring directly at you with this blank expression. It's also got a sick sequel that has some of the fastest rhythms in the game. Marcher is the third game, and it's the only one here that suffers from being in a language that I don't speak. Many of the commander's orders are in Japanese, and since these are audio cues, they aren't translated. I've just gotta memorize the correct rhythms for this one, which is less than ideal. Plus it's got a sequel, so that's even more memorization. It is worth noting that this game appears with 3 different art styles in its 2 versions and a remix, and honestly I love them all. I really like Sneaky Spirits. I don't have a ton to say about it other than how the slowdown when you hit a ghost is kind of cool, but I just wanted to mention it since I love it in its sequel so much. Space Dance is really fun, and if you played this game's DS sequel, you'll probably recognize these guys from Rhythm Rally. The moves are all really fun, and they're having such a good time doing them. It also has a great sequel, one of the only which mellows the original down and takes it in a jazzier direction. Quiz is the only game that doesn't require good timing, since its gameplay is based around hitting the buttons the same amount of times as the devilish host does. Unfortunately, this isn't fun. It goes on for way too long, and its gameplay is by far the least interesting of anything in this entire collection. Nightwalk isn't too notable on its own, but the character it features is. This little guy is known as Playan. He's from a GBA game of the same name. Calling it a game is a bit of a lie. It's actually a media player cart that you insert an SD card into to play MP3s and videos on your Game Boy Advance. It seems like a really cool application, but unfortunately it never made its way to North America. It's not region locked like all other GBA games, so you could still use it on a Game Boy Advance or DS from here if you really wanted to. Sadly, it's not cheap, and I'm not planning on paying $130 to play music on my DS. Anyways, Playan the character appeared in the menu interface, which has quite a few parallels between Nightwalk's art style and in some of the cart's own built-in minigames. He's also in the 3DS's audio visualizer, which is a cool Easter egg, even though a combined total of 7 people probably use that feature. I have no clue why they add him to Rhythm Tengoku, but he's definitely welcome here. People seem to not really like Polyrhythm and its sequel, but I love playing them. Yeah, they're simplistic, but its music, sure as it may be, is great, and the concept of doing 2 separate rhythms with both hands isn't done in any other game here. I just think Ratman is kind of funny, and I love the character design here. There's nothing else to say, but, you know, it's cool, so I'm putting it in here. The 6th remix out of the 8 seamlessly combines every minigame in the whole game into one song, and it's the most fun thing to do here. I can play it every time I boot up the game and never get sick of it. It's just really great to see every single thing you've done so far all crammed together into one big celebration of the game. Plus, it's really impressive how the composer managed to mash 25 separate songs into each other and still have it sound completely fluid and full. So that's all the minigames that I'm talking about, and those make up the core of Rhythm Heaven's gameplay. However, there's still a wealth of content in this game aside from them. By getting superbs on minigames and earning medals, you'll unlock rhythm toys and endless games. There are 4 rhythm toys, and I'll just briefly cover each one. There's Meow Mixer, which is a simple beat machine with sounds that kind of resemble cats. Mechanical Horse is the most unique toy, where you tap along in order to ride a beat that slowly increases in speed. Eventually it'll get too fast where you can't keep up and it'll slow down again. Love Machine just confuses me, and it doesn't even really have any music part to it. Rat Machine, on the other hand, lets you control the 2 Ratmen from the minigame I talked about earlier, and it's way more fun than it should be just to mess around with it. There are also 4 endless games, which are all high score and endurance based. The first is Mr. Upbeat, who I showed at the beginning. He hops over the arrow on the offbeats, and every round it speeds up. Sick Beats EX is an endless version of the minigame that I didn't talk about, where you're a doctor using the D-pad to stab viruses. This is personally my favorite endless game here. Next is Quiz EX, an endless version of the worst game here. The last one is Mannequin Factory, where you're slapping mannequin heads to face you, and then stamping their faces on. I'm not good at this one, so I don't play it that often, but I mean, still more than Quiz. The game also includes drum lessons. Of course, these aren't really drum lessons, but they're probably the most difficult part of the game. You sit down with this blue guy, and he basically teaches you how to play a virtual drum set using all the system's buttons. You unlock them with medals, and there are a surprisingly high amount of them, from 19 total split into 4 difficulty levels. I've unlocked them all, but I can't beat most of them because my DS's R button somehow got broken, and I can't play one of the symbols because of it. Fortunately for me, there's another drum-based mode that doesn't require rhythm, or skill, or the R button. There's the live mode, where you get to drum along to 3 different concerts. These concerts are comprised of 3 songs from the game in a row for you to drum along to. There's no challenge or opportunity for failure, as far as I'm aware, so it's a good way to unwind after the stress of going through perfects. Also, I love the art design for all the bands. They're unique from each other and capture the best parts of this game's art style. The last thing in the rhythm games section, other than the credits, which are self-explanatory, is the cafe. The cafe isn't as fleshed out as it is in the game's DS sequel, but it's still worth talking about. When you get a perfect on a game and then walk in there, the barista will congratulate you and the patrons will applaud. Well, just one person, but it's still much appreciated. If you're having difficulty getting past any of the mini-games, the barista will offer you helpful hints. Also, when I was doing research for this video, I found out that the barista is actually this dog. Now, I've been playing games from this series for over 10 years, and I had absolutely no clue that the barista was a real character with a design, and even less clue that this is what it looked like. The second menu option is Rhythm Test. If you've played Rhythm Heaven Fever for the Wii, you might recognize this type of mode. The rhythm test is mildly useless, and it just shows you how accurate your sense of rhythm and internal clock is. It doesn't give a ton of insight after the test, and it's really bare bones. You don't even get the cute characters that the Wii's rhythm test has. The only really interesting thing about this mode is how it's a remnant of the game's original concept as a rhythm trainer. Fortunately, they traded out that unfun sounding idea for the minigame compilation that the game ended up as. Overall, this mode is pretty useless, and I almost never take advantage of it. Next is email, where you can read stuff. And I promise it's way better than it sounds. You get these tiny things to read from being perfects on certain games, and assuming the ones on the English fan translation are the exact same as the ones on the original version, these things are packed to the brim with character. They're all really well written and offer insights into the world of Rhythm Tengoku. I also really love how this menu looks. Even though it's not fancy or anything, there's just something about the vibes it gives off that make me happy. These little bonuses really do a lot to motivate the player to go for the perfects on the harder levels, and it's a great way to relax after playing the bulk of the game. Next is the studio, where you can listen to and drum along with songs from the game. As expected, these songs are earned by getting perfects, and all the different drum sets are earned with perfects too. These are yet another great incentive to get perfects here, plus the menu interface is also pretty fun. And I think this is a good point to talk about the game's music, since that's the main focus of the studio. A rhythm game absolutely needs good music, and Rhythm Tengoku delivers on that goal. The soundtrack isn't as good as the future games in the series, partly because of the limited GBA hardware and sound chip, but it's still more than serviceable. It captures a ton of different styles and moods, and nearly every song perfectly complements the feel of the game it accompanies. Some of my favorites are Spaceball, Space Dance 1 and 2, Rhythm Calligraphy, Polyrhythm, Bouncy Road, Samurai Slash, and Tap Dance 2, along with most of the remixes. I recommend you listen to the soundtrack, and fortunately it's easy to find on YouTube or SoundCloud. Or better yet, just play the game. It's only like $15 for the translation cart on eBay, and if you're willing to pay a bit more, you can get the original Japanese version. Or you could emulate it, since I'm certain that that wouldn't be too difficult at all. I haven't tried to do it yet, but it can't be that hard. Anyways, yeah, the soundtrack slaps, and playing along with it in the studio is a pretty cool feature. And finally, we've got the options menu. Did I really decide to close the video with this? Well, that's Rhythm Tengoku. It's really a shame that this game never made its way to the US in any official capacity, since it's a great game for its console and it still holds up well today. Alongside, starting with Nintendo's most loved series, well, at least loved by those who know about it. As I said before, I fully recommend that you go check this one out if you haven't already, whether that's on a real cart or through emulation. Before I end this video, there's a couple things I want to point people towards regarding Rhythm Heaven as a series, not just the first game. A few months ago, a bunch of artists got together and created Rhythm Heaven Reanimated, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's really awesome, and you can see all the love and care that went into making it. More recently, there was also a massive series medley made by Generic, which is pretty awesome to see. The idea here is, even though a game hasn't come out in years in the series, the fan base is still well and alive. I have no clue how to end this video, since I'm new to this whole YouTube thing. Subscribe and like the video? Maybe?